PK here. This is my very first collections video that I've ever done, and I chose to do it on the Game Boy platform. And I'll be talking about all these various Game Boys here, and I will be talking about my Game Boy collection here. So let's get started on my very first collections video. First, I want to talk a little background about why I'm doing a collections video at all. Well, I was thinking about doing, obviously I haven't been picking up a lot of stuff lately, so I thought I'm going to do a collections video on a platform that I actually really haven't been actively collecting for a while. So I thought this seemed like the perfect system and platform to talk about. So in this video, I'll be doing a lot of basically showing you guys what I have, doing some reminiscing, maybe talking about a little bit of background on the system or why, some fond memories I might have of it. So here we go, let's get started. For the first part of this retrospective collection video, I'll be talking about the DMG and the Super Game Boy. First up, we have the DMG, or Dot Matrix Game Boy, or Original Game Boy, as it's pretty much called for the most part by a lot of people. What can I say about this? It's a system I have a lot of fond memories for. I remember when I've talked about this before. I remember when I was a little kid, I actually got so upset. I remember I broke the screen, honestly, and I remember my mom sent it back. I look back in retrospect on that, and I'm like, wow, my mom probably had to give something up, for me, being a little too tough on my Game Boy, and it makes me just really happy and so thankful that she did that for me, So again, this is a system that, this is probably, let's be honest, this is probably not the best of all the Game Boys, I mean, the Game Boy Pocket, which I don't have one, I always wanted to get one, but I never did because I never could find one, for a price that I was looking for, it's got that yellow screen, but there's something nostalgic and special about it nonetheless. And if it's not a good system, it's certainly an amazing platform. You got to think about what's really special about this system is the fact that, sure, the graphics weren't amazing, but guess what? It beat out the Nomad, it beat out the Game Gear, it beat out the Turbo Express. It took them all to school. And you know why? Because it has such awesome games. I cannot stress that enough. It has such an most awesome games. And that's why it's a system and a platform that has stood the test of time. So let's first talk about games I have on here. Well, of course, naturally, I have Super Mario Land, Super Mario Land 2, Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3. Let me talk a little bit about this trilogy of games. Super Mario Land, I recall I got Super Mario Land after I had gotten Super Mario Land 2. And yeah, again, what I've always thought about, and I think I've talked about this before, I've thought Super Mario Land is to the original Super Mario Brothers what Super Mario Land 2 is to Super Mario World in the sense of stylized, gaming, and I love Super Mario Land. It's simple, it's fun, it's 4 levels of awesomeness, and it's just really enjoyable. And Super Mario Land 2, 6 Golden Coins is even better. You get all these, you can go to all these different places like totally out of order, as far as like the different lands and whatnot, and it's a fantastic game. Now Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, I love this game. Honestly, I cannot tell you. And if I remember when I was little, I remember beating it the first time and I was like, wait, why did I only get the tree? That's stupid, and then eventually I went back and collected all the treasures from the game and got the best ending, which is like the moon, which was a really sweet deal. So yeah, I have a great affinity for those games. I also have Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan. Oops. Ninja Turtles 2 Back from the Sewers. And Ninja Turtles 3 The Radical Rescue. Now these are games that I missed out on as a kid. I would have loved to have got these when I was younger. As you can see, I'm a huge Turtles fan. And just, oh wow, there's some good games here. I think the first and the second one are really good too. I haven't played enough of the third one to really make a snap judgment on how I feel about that one. But yeah, definitely some must-haves for the Game Boy collection are those games right there. Let's see, another game. This is one of my favorite. This is probably one of my favorite Game Boys, if not, I'll even go as far as to say this is probably one of my favorite Zelda games of all time, because it's the first Zelda game that I ever beat, and that is The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. This is my copy of Zelda: Link's Awakening, my original that I had as a kid. It's one of the few Game Boy games that I still own from when I bought it when it was new, and it's just a big deal for me. And it's really, really worn out. It's worn out from top to bottom, basically, where it's faded. And yeah, I remember playing this for the first time and thinking, my gosh, this is so much fun, and it's so challenging, especially when I was younger, it was challenging. A lot of people have a great affinity for Link to the Past with good reason. It's a game that was, really, really improved significantly on the first one, as far as like the light, with the light and dark worlds one. I like this game for its simplicity. I like the fact that I don't know, it's a game that I think, in my opinion, not to say anything bad about Link to the Past, but this game is much easier to get into. Which is also a reason I love A Link Between Worlds, because I felt that was a game that's also easier to get into than Link to the Past. Even though, again, Link to the Past is an awesome game, but this holds a much bigger place in my heart than that game does. So I love Link's Awakening. I can't say enough about it. Up next we got Dr. Mario, another game I had as a kid. I also had the Japanese version. What can I say about Dr. Mario? Dr. Mario is a fantastic game. It's simple puzzle playing. It's Dr. Mario. What can I say? I don't know what else I could say about that. I got the Japanese version at the Midwest Gaming Classic, actually, and it was my first gaming convention. So that game right there, the Japanese version, holds a special place in my heart because it's the first time I ever got an import game. I'll tell you right now. Is it worth your money? No, not really. It plays identically to this version, North American version. So yeah, I wouldn't highly recommend, you got to pick that one up, because again, it's identical in every way. It's just a different label. That's really about it. Up next, we got Joshua. Joshua is a Wisdom Tree game, I believe. Yes, Wisdom Tree. Yeah, of course. This was not my game. This is my fiance's game, actually. It was in her Game Boy collection. And I was like, I never had a Wisdom Tree game before. I played it a little bit. In fact, I think she's played it far more than I have and probably gets more enjoyment out of it when she does play it every so often. But yeah, it's Joshua. The subtitle, The Battle of Jericho. Yeah, Joshua, The Battle of Jericho is this game. So I don't know a lot about it, but I played it a little bit, and it seems pretty cool. Let's talk about some more other games I've gotten. I've accrued these from various places, pawn shops and flea market finds, etc. I've gotten a lot of these from different places, so let's go over a few more of these. I got DuckTales. DuckTales was a pawn shop find. I found this at a pawn shop. The label's kind of messed up, so I had to kind of like tape it back a little bit, but it works just fine. Plays like a champ, just like the original. Motocross Maniacs. I don't know a lot about this game. Some people have told me they like it in the same sense of like an Excite bike. Let's go next. Operation C. What's interesting about Operation C is this was like, it was developed strictly for the Game Boy. This is, so this is kind of like, yeah, it's like Contra for the Game Boy basically, but it was developed, with the Game Boy in mind. It wasn't just like some, poor port or anything. So up next we have Castlevania Adventure. Castlevania Adventure. I got this disc replay, I want to say. Yeah. Up next we got Balloon Kid for the Game Boy. This was also a pawn shop pickup, and it had a label that was also peeling away, just like DuckTales did. And I taped it back a little bit, and it works fine. It was very different than Balloon Fight, that's for sure. Balloon Fight's, arcade-style game. This is a side-scrolling platform, It's different, that's for sure, but it's a good game nonetheless. Then Up next we have Mega Man, Dr. Wily's Revenge. Yes. Haven't played a lot of this, but what I have played has been good. I also have Mega Man 2. The label's kind of a little bit beat up or whatever. Somebody wrote Olsen on the back. Sorry, Olsen, it's mine now. Battletoads for the Game Boy. Oh man, that's I haven't played a lot of that, but I really need to play some more of it because it's Battletoads. You know what I really regret, honestly? This is kind of just random thought, but I used to have Double Dragon 2 on the Game Boy when I was younger, and I wish I still had that because I used to play that for hours. I know that was kind of random, but anyways. And then up next we got Super RC Pro-Am. This was another pawn shop find. By the way, the Mega Man games, I actually got those two at Goodwill, actually, for some really reasonable prices. I can't remember what I spent on it. Up next we have Tennis. Tennis I think I got for like $2 or $3 at Half Price Books. I don't recall. Yeah, I don't even remember when or where. Then, of course, we got Tetris. Tetris is one of those games, in my opinion, I've seen Tetris go for some really ridiculous prices. I'm talking like $7.99, and I'm like, why does this go for $7.99? It's the best-selling Game Boy game of all time. It is not a game that's just super hard to find by any stature of the word, I have picked this game up for anywhere between. I've picked this game up a couple of times. I had one time I got it for like 59 cents at Goodwill. It came with a Game Boy. I kid you not. And then I had one time I think I paid like $3 or $4 for it. And that was the most I was willing to pay, just because it's such a common game, and it's an awesome game. In my opinion, this might be the best version of Tetris. For me, it goes like this as far as it goes. This version, the Tengen version, and the regular version of Tetris on NES. But other than that, this to me is the best version of Tetris. It also happens to be the only version of Tetris I've ever actually beat. So yeah, I have a special place for that one in my heart here. And up next we have Paperboy. I don't recall. I think I bought this at Half Price Books, and it wasn't a lot. Surprisingly, it surprised me. But this is Paperboy. Paperboy is a fun game. Here's another one that belonged to my fiance, and that is Radar Mission. I haven't played a lot of this, but what I have seemed all right. I also got Hunt for Red October. I own this on the Super Nintendo as well. I just need it on the NES, and then I suppose I would have it on all three systems. I don't remember where or why I bought this. I can't remember if it's like Radar Mission or not. I really honestly can't remember. Up next we got Quarth. I've never played this. I've never actually played this. It's sad. It makes me sad when I think about, oh man, I have games that I have never played, and this is one of those. It looks interesting, to say the least. I have, unfortunately, played this. Casper for the Game Boy. I kind of thought, ooh, it's Casper, it's a licensed game. This must be good, right? I paid like $2 for this, and I think that was too many, to be truthfully honest with you. F1 Race for the Game Boy. F1 Race was actually on the original Famicom, actually, and from what some have told me, it was kind of like the unofficial 31st black box game if it had made it to the States. Seemed all right, yeah. And up next we have the Super Game Boy collection. Yes, let's go with these games were built to be played on the Super Game Boy. Games I didn't even know were built to be played on the Super Game Boy. First we have Bomberman GB. And much like Bomberman GB, we also have Wario Blast. I've done an entire review on Wario Blast, and I think it's pretty well known how much I love this game. So if you're not familiar with Wario Blast, definitely go check out my review. See what you think. Another game also I've done a review on is Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, or Donkey Kong 94 as it's called. Another fantastic game. Wow, I've done a lot of reviews on Super Game Boy hybrids. Here is Super Mario Land 7 bootleg cart, which I did a review of. I was like, what is this? We later came to find out that it's actually the Japanese version of Game & Watch Gallery. And then we have what I can only describe as my childhood in a cartridge, specifically 7th to 8th grade era, and that is Pokemon Special Pikachu Edition. Wow, I used to have all three, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, and I played the crap out of these. And I had all 151 Pokemon because I had a Game Genie. You know, I wish I still had a Game Genie for Game Boy. I really need to find one of those. That's definitely on my most wanted list there. So, yeah, again, what these all have in common is you can play them on your Super Game Boy, and they have like special features like for example, like Wario Blast, you can actually play two-player on your Super Nintendo. So, in fact, I got the fiance to play it with me one time or whatever, and that was a lot of fun. So, but there you have it, folks. These are the original Game Boy games. Up next, the hybrids. Here we have the hybrids. And that is the transition period between Game Boy and Game Boy Color. A lot of these games will play on the Super Game Boy, but they don't have the enhanced features that come with the Game Boy Color. So what I call these are the hybrids. The games that are straight up Game Boy Color, won't play on the original Game Boy or Super Game Boy, are games that have the clear cases, which we'll get to. So let's see what we got. First off, I want to talk about the very first two games that I ever got when I was younger for the Game Boy Color. In fact, I remember this is the Game Boy Color I own now, but the one I had when I was younger was a purple Game Boy, and I thought that was really cool. And yeah, so I'm always on the lookout, in fact, for a purple Game Boy because, again, I had one as a kid. I never had the yellow one. I found the yellow one somewhere really cheap. I don't recall when and where I bought it anymore. Let's talk about the first game, which is Game & Watch Gallery 2. Game & Watch Gallery 2 is a fun game. It's you got like Parachute, Donkey Kong on it, the one where Yoshi's like whacking stuff, and fantastic game. This was a lot of fun. I never played a Game & Watch Gallery game before I got this, so you know, it's fantastic. I also got the third one later on or whatever, but not for many, many years. And then I got this game not long after I got Zelda Ocarina of Time, and that is Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX. Yes, I was very psyched. I'd already beat Link's Awakening at this point, so when I found out there was going to be a DX version, I was like, holy crap, it's all in color, and there's an added dungeon? That is sweet. Don't get me wrong, I still love my original one just as much, but this took things to an extra level, and it's pretty awesome, you know, and I think it's definitely worth having both the original and the DX version, just my opinion. Here's a game I would have absolutely gone gaga over if I could have got this when it was new, and that is Wario Land 2 for the Game Boy Color-ish. You can also play it again on the other. And then another game. This is a game I actually had when it was new, actually. And you know, here's the funny thing. I didn't really know anything about the Nintendo 64 version when I bought this. Because, again, I think I convinced my mom to buy it for me. But that is Conker's Pocket Tales. I knew nothing about Conker's Bad Fur Day on Nintendo 64 when I originally purchased this. You know, because I think this came out. Did this come out before? I honestly can't remember, honestly, if this came out before or after the N64 version, but yeah. Now I actually have that. I have Conker's Bad Fur Day, and I have Conker Live and Reloaded on. So I have all three of the original Conker games, you know, and I think I got those two games before I rebought this one when I, you know, so but I thought, oh, I gotta complete my Conker, you know, games, so. Here's another game that I wasn't really familiar with, and that is Pocket Bomberman. As I recall, Pocket Bomberman actually, I want to say, is a side-scroller, unless I'm confusing that with Bomberman GB. I'm not 100% on that one, but yeah. But yeah, I think that's the one that's a side scroller actually, which is kind of interesting. But anyways, then I got Gex Enter the Gecko. What can I say? I haven't played a lot of this. Now here is a game that I absolutely wanted, and when it was new, and I remember being really excited when I finally got it, but I never really played a lot of it, you know, and that is Dragon Warrior Monsters. I remember reading about this in a gaming magazine and thinking, oh my goodness, this game could like dethrone Pokemon, you know? I mean, you can do all these different combinations of breeding different monsters and stuff. I thought this looks really sweet. Of course, it did not dethrone Pokemon by any stature of the word, and Pokemon is still an amazing game. So, Dragon Warrior Monsters. I wasn't even familiar with the other Dragon Warrior games when I did purchase this. You know, that's what's funny about it all. Didn't realize, oh yeah, Dragon Warrior is actually called Dragon Quest in Japan, and it's an RPG, etc., etc. But yeah, and this is the original Dragon Warrior Monsters. Then they made another one, Dragon Warrior Monsters 2, Terra's Adventure. Now there's another one as well. There was another Dragon Warrior Monsters 2, but it was a different one though. You know, I don't know. It's weird that they made two versions of it, but this is the girl version, and there's a guy version as well, I believe. So pretty cool. But yeah, those are the hybrids. You know, so up next, straight up Game Boy Color games. Here are my straight up Game Boy Color games. These all have a clear case. And when they have the clear case, it means they can only be played on the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Player, all those other things. They can't be played on a regular Game Boy, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. So here we go. What do we got here? We got GTA 2. Haven't played a lot of this. You know, I have it on PlayStation as well, so I guess if I was going to play it, I'd probably play it on that over playing it on this, but you know, it's Grand Theft Auto, I mean, nonetheless, so it's nice to have in the collection. And then I got Batman Chaos in Gotham. This game's kind of disappointing. I kind of thought, to be truthfully honest. Here's another game that also made it to the handheld that was a console, and that is and computer game as well, and that is, of course, is Rainbow Six for the Game Boy Color. I don't have a lot of memories of this, but I do have a lot of fond memories of playing it on the Nintendo 64, actually. I was very good at it on the Nintendo 64. A lot of people I've talked to who had it on the PlayStation, original PlayStation, absolutely hated it, but I thought it was good on the Nintendo 64, and I think a lot of other critics agreed with that. Up next is another game that I probably would have absolutely went gaga if I had had this, and that is Wario Land 3 for the Game Boy Color. I love the Wario Land games. They are so much fun. Another game, actually, you know, this is kind of random and off topic, but another game that I thought was actually a lot of fun that I played on the Wii was Wario Land Shake It, which is actually kind of, you know, I think harkens back to the Wario Land series of the Game Boy. So another game to check out, definitely. You know what really kind of sucks about this particular one? I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a bit of a like they put the price tag on here right on the front, and when I went to go pull it off, it took some of the label away, so that really sucks. But again, I got it really cheap, so glad to have it. Now these two particular games are very special to me, and that is The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages, and Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons. This is kind of like, these two are on my ultimate backlog of games I must play and beat. Oracle of Ages, actually, this is my original copy of Oracle of Ages. This is the one that I bought when it was brand new. So again, another game, I don't know why necessarily I held on to it, but I'm glad I did, because again, it's got a lot of personal, sentimental value. And I think I did get really far in this at one point, but I can't recall, it's been so long. And those are my... You know what's really interesting about these two Zelda games is they were, I want to say these were developed by Capcom, or there you have it. Those are my two Zelda games on the Game Boy Color. And then I have Super Mario Brothers DX. I had this when it was new, as I recall, and again, it's an awesome game, especially if you like the original Super Mario Brothers. It also contains Super Mario Brothers Lost Levels, or Super Mario 2 in Japan, which isn't the real Super Mario Brothers 2, but here or there. Anyways, and then I have Mario Golf for the Game Boy. I didn't know a lot about this. I've always had an affinity for NES Open Tournament golf on the NES. I mean, that was one of my favorite golf games, of all time. I've played this a little bit, played this on some car rides and whatnot, and it's got a little RPG element to it, in the sense that you go from place to place, so it's something interesting, that's for sure, and that is Mario Golf. Definitely worth having in the collection. So there you have it, folks. So it's my straight up Game Boy Color collection, that exclusively on the Game Boy Color's platform and above. So up next we have, finally, the Game Boy Advance games that I own. Sorry guys, before I talk about the Game Boy Advance library, there's one more game for the Game Boy Color I totally forgot to mention before I had finished recording all that stuff, so here it is. For me, this is my personal Game Boy holy grail of all games. For years and years, I can recall looking for this game in stores I would go to. There was a time when I still didn't even have I no longer had a Game Boy, and I'd still be looking for this game. I'd ask, hey, do you guys have this game? They're like, no, I don't think anybody has that game, honestly. And I don't recall it ever being, when it came out, even being new. Like, I don't remember stores carrying it. They might have, but I just never saw it. But I got this game not because it was valuable, but because of my love for this series. I love this series. It's one of my favorite series of all time. And this game is Metal Gear Solid for the Game Boy Color. I also even have the instruction book for it. I don't have a box for it, but that's fine. That's not a big deal to me personally. But yeah, this is one of those games, like everywhere I'd go, I'd always be on the lookout. It's like, I wonder if they have Metal Gear Solid for the Game Boy Color. And what I've played of it is a good game. It kind of harkens back to the first one a little bit, and of course, it really harkens back to the first game, Metal Gear game, and but it's got the look of Metal Gear Solid, which I can't say enough about this game. This is one of those. I don't care if it's worth $1 or $100. It's something I absolutely needed in my collection, and I want to say I got this when I first came back to the States from Japan, actually, and I ordered it online. I don't remember what I paid for it, but it wasn't much compared to what it's gone up to be now. And I didn't even expect the instruction booklet. I think that wasn't even pictured when I purchased this, but yeah, definitely one that I would recommend people keeping an eye out for. It's a good game. So yeah, Metal Gear Solid, Game Boy Color. Now let's get on to the Game Boy Advance games. Alright, now let's get on to the Game Boy Advance library. My Game Boy Advance library is pretty small and pathetic, which is why I could incorporate it into this, because again, it's very small. It's nothing. It's not a big collection worth writing home about, but I do have a few kind of nifty deals here. I got, well, here's my Game Boy Advance. I picked this one up for $5, as I recall. I got it at Savers, and it didn't have a battery. It didn't have a back to it, but I had one of these little battery charger things. It's like a battery pack that also happens to be the same color as this Game Boy Advance, so that was cool. Also, the buttons were like real sticky. Like you couldn't even, I think one of the buttons you couldn't even push in. So I took this sucker apart and fixed that button and put everything back there, and it's golden. It works fine. Screen's pretty scratched up, but I could replace that down the road. I don't really take advantage of that so much because, for the most part, I use my Game Boy Advance SP. What's interesting about this Game Boy Advance SP is it's the NES edition. I want to say I picked this up back in 2012 for I think I paid like $45 for it. And I remember thinking, man, I think I paid too much. But I think those have gone up a little bit in price since, so I'm very happy to have this. The reason I'm so happy to have this is not just because, oh, it's an NES Game Boy, or the NES style Game Boy, but because I had one of these when they were brand new, actually. I'd pre-ordered one at GameStop when they were new, when they were first coming out. And I loaned it to somebody to play some games, and somebody stole it. Yeah, somebody stole it from them. I remember being really pissed. And I remember they telling me, oh, I'll replace that for you, man, no problem, I'll give you some money. They never did. So I feel like I got cheated out of, my Game Boy Advance SP, my NES edition one. So it was really good to finally get one back after how many years of not having it. I used to have a lot more Game Boy Advance games, but I sold the majority of them. I had a lot of the classic NES ones when they were new anyways. And I've kind of just been very, very slowly rebuilding the library back up. So let's start talking about the games I do have still. First up, we have Super Mario Advance for the Game Boy Advance. I love this game. I've talked this game up a great deal before in the past. And I mean, I still feel it's the definitive version of Super Mario Brothers 2, and it is freaking awesome. I mean, again, it took everything that was great about the SNES version and made it even better. So, and it comes with the original Mario Brothers as well, as do most of the Mario Advance games. So. Now these three games, I got these super cheap at a Goodwill. What's important to note about them is they are all sequels to another game, and that is they are all sequels to Mega Man Zero. So I have Mega Man Zero 2, Mega Man Zero 3, and Mega Man Zero 4. These were all like ridiculously cheap. I think they were all like under $5, honestly. I couldn't understand why for the life of me, but all worked just fine, and I was happy to get them. I really need to get their first Mega Man Zero, but again, I was really happy to get those. So good games. And then up next, we have a game that everybody tells me is a really awesome game, and I really wish I had time to play it. I also own this game on the original PlayStation, and that is Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. I own the original Final Fantasy Tactics as well on PlayStation. I have not played it a lot, or I try to play it, and then I get distracted. Here's another game I got. It's a bit of a throwaway game, and that is Spider-Man for the Game Boy Advance. I've never played this at all. And then finally, here's a game that Joe of Joe Goes Retro recommended, and that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the Game Boy Advance. And I have to say, he was absolutely right. This is a really good game. This is an underrated gem, honestly, on the Game Boy Advance. I don't know how the big console versions of this game work, but this is nice. I highly recommend this. There you have it, folks. This is my Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance collection, all in one shot. I'm sure you guys have a lot of the same games. And maybe some of you have some memories of too. I mean, what are your memories of the Game Boy or Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance? I can't say enough about this. Is one of the best platforms ever. Period. I mean, and it's amazing how long the Game Boy line lasted. It's Then obviously you probably saw that I don't own every single type of Game Boy. I don't own a Game Boy Pocket. I don't own a Game Boy Micro. I don't own the original Nintendo DS, actually. I have a DSi. I didn't get into the DS line until I got a DSi, and then of course I have a 2DS, but don't own a 3DS either. But also I don't own a Game Boy Player. I used to own a Game Boy Player when they were new. And I remember I traded mine away, and I absolutely regret that. And then you know what's really crazy? I had an opportunity to get one for like $20 with the disc. And I was like, no, I think I want to buy something different. So stupid. I can't believe I passed that up. But anyhow, this is my Game Boy collection. I hope you guys liked this collection video, and if you want me to do more of these, I don't know why you would, because this is just me drowned out talking about stuff, but if you do, that's awesome, and definitely give this a like. If you want me to stop, comment below. If you want to share about your thoughts and memories of the Game Boy, also comment below. So, anyways, thank you all so much for listening and being patient. I know this was a really long video, and it's very uncharacteristic of me to make a long video, but I just kind of wanted to, and again, hope you like it. Thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.